Alright, if you can't tell already, I really like this bike. So if you've been following my video series, you may have noticed that I made a few spec changes to the bike since the first ride video. Let's start with the biggest change, which was the rear shock. So this frame originally was equipped with an XC Tune shock. After a few rides, I noticed the XC Tune shock actually has a really good small bump and bottom out resistance. However, it was on those successive medium hits where I thought the rear end can lose a little bit of composure. So I ordered the 2017 Trail Tune shock, which has a larger air volume can, and more importantly, a softer compression tune. So with the new shock, I immediately noticed that the rear end felt a bit more plush. However, I noticed it was going through more of its travel more quickly. So it wasn't until I ran a few shock whiz sessions that I realized I needed to increase the size of the volume spacer to add some progressivity. So I weigh about 170 pounds with my gear, and I ended up with the second to largest Fox spacer, paired with about 165 psi in the rear shock. So after making this change, I'm more than happy with the way it's performing now. The bike still pedals extremely well, and it's compliant yet supportive throughout all its travel and never really feels harsh to me. Alright, so the other change I made was at the cockpit. So given how surprisingly capable the bike is, I wanted to go with a more aggressive 760mm bar. So I ended up with this Race Face Next carbon bar with a 10mm rise. So this bar has a 35mm clamp diameter, so I ended up swapping the Thompson stem for the matching Race Face turbine. And the other change that I ended up making was swapping out the Ergon GA grips with the GE ones, which I feel are a lot more comfortable. Alright, so those are all the spec changes for now. The rest of the components are holding up really well, with the exception of the XT crank arms, which are looking pretty worn. However, the rest of the drivetrain has been flawless, and the shifting has been terrific. So I have nothing but good things to say about the Fox 34 up front, which I expected. Seems to really match the rear end feel of this bike. Unfortunately, I did end up hitting some rocks at my recent ride in Annandale and put some pretty good scratches on the lower legs, and unfortunately a little bit on the stanchions as well.
Oh! Fuck.
Alright, and last but not least, the Noble Carbon TR33 wheels. I feel like they were custom made for this bike. The rims are stiff and just wide enough to give the tires a good profile, while keeping the rotational weight to a minimum. I was a bit hesitant on getting the i9 Torch hubs due to the noise, but I've grown to love the sound, and the 120 points of engagement is hard to live without once you have it. So I've taken this bike to all my usual and unusual spots, and the more I ride it, the better it seems to get. I'm one of those sick people who actually enjoys climbing, and this bike gets me up and over just about everything I can throw at it, even with that semi-slick tire in the rear end. So coming down, the bike carries a lot of speed, and the confidence it gives you in the corners is what really stands out for me. While the 4.5 is capable of riding some pretty gnarly terrain, this bike feels more at home on fast, flowy sections where you're able to pop off corners, picking lines, and floating over bumps. So what are some things I would improve? Well, honestly, not a whole lot. I'm still getting an occasional knocking noise from the rear end, and I'm not a fan of the internal cable routing. It would be nice if Yeti included some internal cable guides to keep the noise down. Finally, given that you only have 114 millimeters of rear travel, this can be a really tricky bike to dial in for a lot of people. For example, riders who weigh, say, more than 200 pounds might be better off with a higher compression and more progressive XC Tune shock. Just something to keep in mind. So there you have it. This is my only bike at the moment, and I have no trouble taking it pretty much anywhere I want to go. Just having a lot of fun. Again, thanks for watching, you guys. Thanks for supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.